The laughter came suddenly, sharp and careless, cutting through the quiet training field like broken glass. A group of recruits stood near the firing range, their uniforms still stiff with the awkwardness of new beginnings. Among them, one young recruit leaned back against a crate, shaking his head with smug amusement. Women can't be SEALs, he said loudly. Everyone knows that. A few others chuckled, not cruelly perhaps, but confidently, the kind of laughter born from assumptions no one had ever challenged. About 20 yards away, a woman paused. She had been walking past the range quietly, unnoticed until that moment. Her boots slowed against the gravel, and the wind lifted a strand of dark hair across her face as she turned toward the group. For a moment she said nothing. Her name was Elena Vance, though none of the recruits knew it yet. To them she looked ordinary, a visiting instructor perhaps, or maybe someone from another unit. Her uniform carried no obvious rank, no medals glittered on her chest. Just calm eyes, eyes that had seen far more than the young men joking across the field could imagine. The recruit who had spoken noticed her watching and shrugged with a grin. Hey, he added casually, no offense. But Elena didn't look offended. If anything, she looked thoughtful. Behind the recruits, the long training range stretched across dry hills and pale dust. Targets dotted the distance like tiny shadows against the earth. The air smelled faintly of gun oil and sun-warmed metal. Elena walked closer. Each step was slow, deliberate, the quiet kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. Why do you think that? She asked gently. The recruit straightened a little, suddenly aware the conversation had become more serious. Well, he hesitated, glancing at his friends. Because it's the toughest job there is. Elena nodded. That part is true. For a moment, the wind rustled through the distant brush, filling the silence between them. Then she looked toward the firing range. Tell me something, she said. How far can you shoot? The recruit brightened, grateful for the shift in topic. 800 yards, he said proudly. 900 on a good day. A few of the others nodded. Respectable numbers for beginners. Elena smiled faintly. Not bad. She stepped past them toward the range table where a long rifle rested beneath the afternoon sun. The metal gleamed softly. One of the supervising officers nearby noticed her and watched quietly, curiosity flickering across his face. Elena lifted the rifle with practiced ease. The motion was smooth, familiar like someone greeting an old friend. She settled behind it, adjusting the scope with small precise movements. The recruits exchanged confused glances. None of them had expected this. Far down range, nearly invisible in the shimmering heat, a steel target waited. 1,000 yards. Most people could barely see it without optics. Elena inhaled slowly. In her mind, the world narrowed to numbers and wind, distance, breath, timing. But beneath that calm calculation lived something deeper memories, cold nights on distant ridges, long hours lying still in silence while the world held its breath around her. Moments when a single decision carried the weight of many lives. She pulled the trigger, the rifle cracked sharply. A second later, the faint metallic ping echoed across the valley. The recruits froze. The supervising officer raised his binoculars. Direct hit. Before anyone could react, Elena chambered another round, another shot, another distant ping. This time the recruits stepped closer, their earlier laughter dissolving into stunned silence. Elena fired again. Ping. 3 perfect hits. She slowly rose to her feet, brushing dust from her sleeve. The young recruit who had spoken earlier stared at her, confusion mixing with something else now. Respect. How? He started. Elena reached calmly into her pocket and pulled out a small folded paper. She handed it to him. The recruit opened it. Inside was a simple document listing numbers beside a long series of mission records. At the bottom was a final line, confirmed engagements, 300. His eyes widened around him. The other recruits leaned closer, reading over his shoulder. No one laughed anymore, not because they were afraid, but because they understood something important had just shifted. Elena watched them quietly. I wasn't always good at this, she said softly. I doubted myself plenty of times. Her voice carried no pride, only honesty. But strength isn't about who people expect to succeed. She looked across the range where the distant target still swayed slightly in the wind. It's about who refuses to quit learning. The recruit slowly handed the paper back to her. Ma'am, he said carefully. I think I owe you an apology. Elena smiled gently. Maybe, she said, but the real lesson isn't about me. She glanced at the group of young men standing there. It's about remembering that talent doesn't care about assumptions. Silence settled over the training field once more, but this time it felt different. Heavier with understanding, because the strongest warriors aren't always the loudest ones, and sometimes the quietest proof changes the loudest minds. Respect is never given by words alone, it is earned through discipline, patience, and the courage to rise beyond doubt. Like a distant echo across a still valley, truth travels farther than pride ever will. If this story surprised you, tell us where you're watching from in the comments and subscribe to Cinematic Whispers for more powerful stories that remind us greatness often appears where people least expect it.